Makes me feel good that Alex and Morgan are here and are reading together. And they've published in this past year 2 beautiful books that if you haven't read them yet, they're available over there at the table. I deeply recommend them. And yeah, welcome Alex and Morgan. Also, Bin is here over there. She's our little superstar of the night. She will be smiling, hopefully. And what else? Okay, so and a few announcements before we begin. This Friday, we have an event with Hannah Zevin and Jamieson Webster titled Psychoanalysis and Poetry. It is sold out, but I think there will be tickets at the door. So if you want to come, you should come. And what else? Logistics. We have 2 all-gender bathrooms, 1 on the first floor, 1 on the ground floor. If you need to get there, let me or anyone else on staff know, and we'll open the door for you. And I think that's it for announcements. I also wanted to thank Teline Trần tonight for introducing Morgan. We'll start with Morgan, and then I will be introducing Alex. So then I'll turn it over to Teline. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me. This past weekend, Morgan and I were having lunch, and someone asked how we knew each other. I think the response was poetry and mutual friends, but at this point, I think we sort of formally agree with each other. I tried to remember the first time I came across their work while studying in Portland, Oregon, and all I could figure in my memory was thinking that the minimalism of their website read as like a wry acknowledgement of how they knew that their work speaks for itself, like the status of a little bit of a humble brag. Morgan's language is not very simple. It's calculated and durational, with a humor that spins into violence with honest submission and ease. In Morgan's book, The Selkie, which you can rent at the library, a form of fish life, or FFL, walks into a hardware store. The FFL asks for a trash bag, bleach, plaster, and tape. We don't know if the fish is an accomplice. I don't know if it really matters. And one day the fish has to change his order. We're shocked, the FFL is not. He has a new job. It's business as usual. He walks out the door dragging. I think he might be hurt, facing back pain, disability, or maybe just straight up societal alienation, but still, he works, he makes an honest living, he puts bread on the table for his fish gentry. What happens when a fish is out of water and works a dirty job? Is he making the motions as he goes, or are the motions maiming him? In this world, a word is earned and poetry is compulsory. One winter, I bought a cookbook written by monks in 1977. The foreword affirms that the medium is the message. Eating is always symbolic. The ordinary meal is the medium for the message of God's love for us, since that love is the most ordinary thing in the world. We can never eat enough at one time to eliminate the need to eat again and again and again. I personally think Morgan's work is concerned with the point at which performance and identity eats itself. Once Morgan told me that they're wary of identification with me and others like me just because our parents come from the same country, but we're cousins nonetheless. I agree. I know they mean what they say because Morgan is a twin. Here is Morgan Vo.
It sounds like what I said there was too concise to be properly communicative, so we'll have to talk more. But Teline is definitely my cousin. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful, not just to be here tonight, but to have a sense of place here always in my life. And I'm very grateful to be reading with Alex and to celebrate her new book as well. I'm going to start with reading from the selkie, which I think what I chose to read will be more or less. Okay, thanks, Noah. I love crowds in the stratosphere. I love crowds in the sea, of dust and charge, of tactic and gas, of feedback and flicker, of military green. Crowds that keep no bones, no meter, crowds without below or aft, crowds that leave no odor, no phone. They need elaboration, they are elaborate. They do not lack for trails of crumbs. Crowds are calluses in spite of floating above the bottom, below the sea. The monger kisses each fish goodbye. The fish kiss back with hands across each eye. Dad asked, "Isn't there a joke about fish and red lipstick?" The monger replied, "Of course. It goes, a hole opened in the sky, and the sea rose to meet it." Dad repeated, confused, "A hole opened in the sky, the sea rose to meet it." Mom said beneath her breath, "A hole? The sea?" The baby grabbed it from the air, declaring, "That's not so funny." And the monger said, "So be it," before tossing one off to the birds. By accident or mistake, one of the fish gets shuffled in with the cash. The monger fails to notice a clammy white tail poking out from his wallet. The banker takes it. She washes her hands, but she does that after every touch. The ATM passes it out. In just 1 week, the fish is used to pay for an oil change, a bag of candy, a seafood platter, margarine, tickets to Black Adam, a discount prescription for albuterol, discount ammo, lavender-scented candles, a toll. Weeks and months and years go by. Eventually the fish gets worn in two, then taped together again, then passed back out by a firmly held hand. A fish wrapped in newspaper given to the baby to read. The oldest and slowest wisdoms the baby acknowledged with a cry. "Shelter," she shrieked, "find shelter," pressing fish to cheek. The prisoner of love continued, freshly rotting each new day. The monger hates how seagulls circle. "Birds, birds, birds," he shakes his fists. "Birds, birds every day." The seagulls love how mongers work. "Fish, fish, fish," they snap at air. "Fish, fish, 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 fish." Flying fish angel, coconut horns on its back. A tiny cretin towed through the sky. Screeching like firebirds, sweet smell of a long jetty's foam, a gout-hobbled knee, pouring corrosively bright drops of water, so salty, so dense, silent shell goes far in the distance. Ben is 9 months old tomorrow, so big moments. They laid in cosmic powder. Silver foam had formed around their pupils. Dad said, summer wouldn't be the same if we were home and had to fly them out all that way. And Mom said, let's not forget how miracles happen in the first place. Go ahead, the monger said, touch. You buy two, you drive them home. Late at night, you notice something stuck inside one's chalky lip. You reach in with finger and thumb. You reach a thin scroll. It reads, "After all you know, and Tibet is still not free." Lately, the monger doesn't feel like laughing. The days he's had, the days at work, the days at home, the days in the news, the one day done with the days ahead. The monger feels that sunshine has lately creased on sight, that clothing has lately bore no weight, that moments have lately stepped apart to face away from him. He wishes he could concentrate his breath to change the air, or write a law to sew connections back together. The worst is when he's just left his stall or walked out the door in the morning, when he rubs a thumb against his keys, when he is turning from a counter, placing change inside his pocket. Going from place to place has lately felt like testing an ankle that hasn't yet been reconciled, isn't finished being pain. You bury one foot in the fish book. The other foot stays stuck inside the cloudy book. The fish book outlined, full-lipped, pokeable pages. The cloudy book blowing, heavy doling, fragile packet. One foot chops while the other whisks. One foot gasps while the other grays. Both start to weather, both start to stew. Both start to ferry, both start to flake. Both start to soften, both start to rise. Both books flip open. You put down another extension in each, a knee and a hand, an eye and a ball, one hair after the other, an ear and a breast. One of each until both halves have been evenly apportioned. Half starts to taper, half starts to bind. Half starts to barrel, half starts to drive. Half itches, half slips, half mimics, half pries. Half ripens, half shortens, half eases, half hones. Both halves get clammy, both halves grow prone to pattern, to influence, to index, to price. But for the half in the fish book, it's more like a tug. For the half in the cloudy book, more like a push. A push from behind, a tug into darkness. You tumble out the boundary of a tawny overhead light. The four corners. End of the day, the monger looks back at his stall. In the black plastic trough, just 4 fish remain, one curled in each corner in a shrimp-like decline. We're coming up on 50 years of the anniversary of this performance series. April 30th, 1975. Statement. I, the monger, plan to do a 1-year performance piece to begin on April 30th, 1975. I shall seal myself in my stall in solitary confinement inside a tray of ice measuring 6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet. I shall not converse, read, write, listen to the radio, or watch television until I unseal myself on April 29th, 1976. I shall have fresh fish every day. My friend, the janitor, will facilitate this piece by taking charge of my fish, clothing, and refuse. The monger, 111 Hudson Street, 2nd floor, New York, 10013. November 1976. Statement. I, the monger, plan to do a 1-year performance piece. I shall chuck a fish from my stall every hour on the hour for 1 year. I shall immediately leave my stall each time after I chuck the fish. The performance shall begin on November 11th, 1976 at 7 p.m. and continue until November 11th, 1977 at 6 p.m. The Monger, 111 Hudson Street, 2nd floor, NYC 10013. April 26, 1978. Statement. I, the monger, plan to do a 1-year performance piece. I shall stay outdoors for 1 year, never go inside. I shall not go into my stall, a building, subway, train, car, airplane, ship, cave, tent. I shall have a sleeping bag. The performance shall begin on April 26, 1978 at 2 p.m. and continue until April 26, 1979 at 2 p.m. The Monger, New York City. February 4th, 1980. Statement. We, the monger and a fish, plan to do a 1-year performance. We will stay together for 1 year and never be alone. We will be in the same room at the same time when we are inside. We will be tied together at waist with an 8-foot rope. We will never touch each other during the year. The performance will begin on February 4th, 1980 at 6 p.m. and continue until February 4th, 1981 at 6 p.m. A fish, the monger, 111 Hudson Street, 2nd floor, New York, 10013. February 1st, 1982. Statement. I, the monger, plan to do a 1-year performance. I will not sell fish, not talk fish, not see fish, not smell fish, not go to fish stall and fish market for 1 year. I will just go in life. The performance will begin on February 1st, 1982, and continue until February 1st, 1983. The Monger, New York City. July 31st, 1983. Statement. I, the monger, have a 13 years plan. I will sell fish during this time. I will not sell it publicly. This plan will begin on my 36th birthday, July 31st, 1983, continue until my 49th birthday, July 31st, 1996. The monger, Earth. So I'm writing a new group of poems that at the moment is called Wedge World. And it kind of follows from the writing of the Selkie. But I think for me, the writing of the Selkie was a lot about trying to describe a world and discern certain factors or dimensions of that world. This group of writing is a little bit more about thinking about particular obstructions that a world that we're participating in maybe make between us and certain forms of wholesomeness, I guess I would say. The pit, a pit, deep and unlit. Into, down, and round it, on knees, on fingers caked in bloodied mud. On carousel, wending hell, till fear itself has been destroyed. The box, aperture, aperture, like a cane to light. Steady it closer to the real I like. Body of water in the vein of an eddy. Whip the object into looking right. Grieving, grieving day for night. Story. I ate the bones, they hobbled west. 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 The world. Scrape life off the world's shoe. Drag life through the world's streets. Run life on the world's money. Feed life to the world's dogs. Stick life with the world's pen. Fold life like the world's paper. Keep life from the world's house. Throw life in the world's rain. The crater. They are the water in the crater. They are the cinder in the crater. And they are the clamor. And they are the tarp. The clay. Hear the cold clay creak and the frog bong bubble. Hear the dust stack clumps in the dread design. This is how we cluster round the old lang sign. Hear the cold clay quiet and the frog bong fail. Hear the dust pat dry and the dread denied. Unpronounced we shovel down the old lang sign. Hear the cold clay flood and the frog bong blacken. Hear the dust rear barbs and the dread ground fine. This is how we rush the door, the old lang sign. Hear the cold clay waken and the frog bong flushed. Hear the dust grip grain and the dread coincide, elide. Muscles grown of micro tears to roll the old lang sign. The cave. I am sitting in a cave, different from the one you are in now. I am writing these words onto one of the walls with a thick oil stick, and I'm going to write them on top of themselves again and again, until the topographic character of the wall flattens beneath the oil, so that any semblance of the wall, with perhaps the exception of point of origin, is destroyed. Where I will be then is in a shrinking room, where one wall, articulated by text, is getting really, really thick, eventually spreading itself over the other walls as well, the one wall perhaps even surrounding me from all sides, as it shifts in its role from field to space. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of an architectural technique, but more as a way to experience a steadfastness in expression across the stretch of about 1 week. Story. He seemed to want to speak, so he bent down and opened his mouth. There was a distant rumble. It grew closer and closer, louder and quicker, until out came an egg, a speckled brown egg. Then a moment later, a turnip with its greens. A moment later, a steak landed with a thud. Then a scoop of pickled cabbage. Then a healthy pat of ghee. It was all cold as though refrigerated, and stiff as though dry, as if left out in the night. Some seconds passed, nothing else came, so we closed the mouth, steadied ourselves, turned and continued our march down the road. Wedge. Which pain is mine to have? We took N to the vet today. Lifestyle obviously contributes to harm. Is contribution harm? To see her stuck on the table, be smiled in our arms, smiled at sweet folks. Food is a solid mass. We tested and tested, having lacked attentiveness at one time, stacked against our hope and inspiration now. To see her moving out from tight clinical context. Which is mine to have? Not the same future, but a different same, cornered in pervasive forefront. The drought on everyone. The imminent threat of rooms to lay in, awake while others know. The ditch. A ditch, a dark brown dugout drainage ditch, in the grass of which a cord of hurdy-gurdy sits. Tufted grasses brush a rusty muffler. Halt a clod beside the nearer pitch, casting towards the further. Obscure a mothball, crowbar, snakeskin, nail. Two buttery eyes, one low having rolled to the bottom and left there to plaque with frost, one high having crept to the crest, drawn from the road by a beryl green fog. The high one tightens, seeing what he sees, woven through blades and clods. Tufted grasses thatch a zone of vexed connection, like a flicker film stuck on a splice, or soaking up brine in a 2-gallon jar. Tufted grasses scratch between the eyes. Like court without the judge, the weeds are nodding back and forth, down there in the ditch with much diminished wind. This is a list of pits. Bum pit, hum pit, loo pit, coo pit, boo pit, ram pit, cram pit, slur pit, burr pit, scar pit, har pit, tar pit, plum pit, chum pit, pea pit, sea pit. The hole. When we first found the hole, we could smell it. But standing there staring, the scent disappeared. The longer we looked, the more shallow the hole grew, bottom coming into view. We sunk with the perimeter and the air came along, having fled but refreshed, now flew through observation. Cubic liters culminating, stress particles making hay. And smelling became a story that made sense but lessened its impact on the level earth over time. That's her favorite. The chink. A chink in the wall above the bathroom sink. Looks flat when filled with a dense beige concentrate of soap, breath, hair, farts, paper fibers, sponge, and paste. But straight a paper clip and scrape away. Then put your eye up to the empty nick and feel the heat escape, which way in and which way out. And see the light float by on tittering threads, which way out and which way in. And shadows split as a hand swipes past the other side, the hand that probably scratched the chink when fixing something with heavy tools, fixing it in place, then swung too hard, where now a jagged divot holds a feeble hole that sometimes leaks. The cave. I am sitting in a cave different from the one you are in now. I am thinking of the impact that your actions have had on my life, and the impact that my actions might have on yours. The rash, dust, char, and subsequent paths of study undertaken. I am thinking about how insistently you beseech others to believe that I don't care about life, mine or anyone else's. How this fantasy of my relation to life, living, makes me at once perfectly invincible and perfect in my vulnerability, in either direction lacking a link to the world's family. How a person pressed in this paradox, repulsive in action and passivity, proves a vaporous fuel, motivation, locomotion, derived from incessance and confused disgust. I am sitting in a cave. I am thinking about how your insistence forces me to my own, how narrowness and emphasis is made so abundant in the world that language itself is clipped, that only languages of finality can be heard, and thus can they alone be spoken on the world's stage, for worlds of crush, cart, of liquids and solids commingled with pins, of damage and density stacked against fences. I am looking at papers so ancient they curl, so fresh they streak, trying to remember the first time we spoke, but every next letter becomes the sudden initial, every entreaty darkened by the events they supposedly foreshadow. The day when we meet and your tongue will collapse, the day when we meet and your children be lost, the day when we meet and your sleep be sliced through, the day when we meet and your body be skinned, your thoughts overwritten, your breath wrung and hung. Yet I am sure we've already met. In fact, I still see you in the corner. I still hear you in my jug. I can taste you in the bread and dust you with my fingers. You were here in the night, now you call from afar. Your voice hurtles like a stone through the noonday sky, and you think of yourself as the only one strong enough to catch it. The night is the net in which we land to draw close together, claw, our missives at hand. The night is the mouth of a tunnel through which we emerge from our caves to touch without waking again. I regard these meetings, this correspondence, not so much as a contest between this part and that, but more as a way for my part to be involved. Respiration, however clotted, during the hours of an impure air. The well. The well, the well. No water, the well. No bottom, the well. No cover, the well. No wind, the well. Dipping, the well. The bucket, the well. Up comes the well. A picture, the well. A face, the well. Pours out, the well. Evaporates, the well. Along the well. The path, the well. Departing, the well. The well, the well. The poor. A poor, distended and sore. A hair curled under the root of the hair, the growing reservoir. Bulbous logics fault the surface. Aggregation opens doors. Aggression makes itself a home in heated, beaded, stagnant force. Home in fried corn, home in bargain bin. Home in the face of due course. Home in the stretches above hidden stores. Wedge. What persists in what? I closed the door. I still heard people singing and my neighbors closing doors. I hear my baby and saw a baby I sought to dry. The humor's gone, but still makes horror harder, like maybe it's lurking there. Maybe it's crescendo, but just too loud for human ears. The crumbs in bed, remember, a photo in 3 or 5 grains on a brand of pillow. Pursed lips in harmony with the moon behind the roof. In sheer numbers, they're all still there and still blare. Getting stuck by quills when the wing still tries. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Morgan. I love these new poems. So good. It is now my great pleasure to introduce my friend, Alex Cuff. Yay. Okay. We're talking with Kay how hard it is to introduce people that are very close to us. And yeah, but also rewarding and also makes us think of them in a different way. Alex Cuff is learning to metabolize grief into a presence that keeps her in relationship to herself and community. A high school teacher and an editor of the Brooklyn-based poetry magazine No Dear. She's the author of Family, A Natural Wonder, and I try out a sentence to see whether I believe. Her first full-length collection, Common Amnesias, was published by Ugly Duckling Press in 2024. She lives in Flatbush, Lenapehoking, with her partner and feline extended family, Carl Kuma, in Medp. When I told a friend who isn't a poet that my friend Farah was reading on Monday at the project and that one of my closest friends, Alex, was reading on Wednesday, he accused me of nepotism. Who are you going to invite next, he asked. Your aunt, your brother? My friend who isn't a poet doesn't understand the relationship between poetry and friendship. The way we become friends because we feel seen by a poem, or that loving a poem means, most times, not always, loving the person who wrote it. Extending friendship and poetry into a sociality that moves beyond both. I love Alex and I love her poems. I spent years with them like members of an extended family that remain eerily foreign even when close. Through them, I learned about this country, the breaking down of history into isolated family units, the fantasy of the suburban middle class American house, its various rooms. Quote, let us bring things into the body, take them out, and move them around the house, Alex writes. By moving things around the house, she dislodges deep-seated familial mythologies. The repressed returns via dreams. Dreams persist as psychic residue. Psychic residues are now lodged in the body, embedded in its various organs. Alex sprays magnesium on her skin to activate her stagnant bowels, but nothing moves. What has been ancestrally passed down is stuck somewhere between the large and small intestine. The medicine is in the poem, lines of sharp, unforgiving prose free of metaphors. There's no symbolic resolution in Alex's poem. That would be contrary to the body of the writer, its physiological resistance to absorption. Instead, Alex proceeds by collision, by bringing together what's distant and placing it in sequential order. For example, quote, my partners call from the bathroom to ask how to say, I am taking my second shit in Italian, end of quote. She writes, a few pages later, I dream about how hard it is to get off the ground as a bird. The proximity between different registers of experience produces a new syntax, a truth that grammar, despite the soundness of its logic, can't fully grasp. In noun, Alex engages her father in a back and forth about two nouns acting as adjectives. Insisting on rules, on the correct way of saying something, ultimately conceals what resists articulation. Quote, tell them the truth, Alex writes when her father shares that he's worried that people may ask why Eve didn't come to Uncle Ed's funeral. I don't know if Alex's poems are about the truth, more about the shame that prevents us from accessing it. A reach towards radical honesty grappling with the blur of its own limits. Quote, I still cannot truly say whether knowing the things that afflict can lessen the hold of the affliction. I could be asking the wrong questions, end of quote, she writes. I think she's wrong. She is asking the right questions, questions that by questioning their own legitimacy invite us to dig deeper, keep that passage between lack and fulfillment, self and other, amnesia and history leaking, our holes open, lacking, and alive. Please join me in welcoming Alex Cuff.
Hey everyone. I'm going to make this lower because I'm very short. How's that? Thanks, Noah. Okay. Oh. Okay, thanks. Thank you so much, Mirene, for that beautiful introduction. I feel like I don't have to read anymore. I'm like, okay, thanks. Bye. And thanks to everyone who makes the Poetry Project happen, including all of you. I feel like a student of the project, and I'm always grateful to be here. And so great to read with Morgan. Thank you, and I love the Selkie. And been following your work since I saw your name in the newsletter when you were an Emerge Surface B fellow. That's a long time ago, but I've been following it ever since. Okay. So I'm going to start in the beginning of the book. There's an epigraph from Adrienne Rich that I can't see. Shall I put my glasses on? Okay. In America, we have only the present tense. I am in danger. You are in danger. Dirt. I am digging up potatoes and find the mother. Like all mother spuds, it's rotten to the core. Like it, I have to be sacrificed so that others can live. This guy says he likes when I'm sexy. He calls me Simone instead of Alex. In my mother's dining room, the blue ribboned wallpaper, this guy pulls out his dick, swings it toward my stomach. I know I'm in big trouble if I pay the slightest attention. The wallpapered room is a small rocky cliff, a peninsula surrounded by water. Someone has set up a cocktail lounge on the seafloor. I dive down, I mix a drink. I am drunk with the lions. Their manes are humiliating. 10 years searching for that spot, waiting in line for a public bathroom. I remember the girl stored in Tupperware, my call to keep her alive. I'm hanging off a dead man's leg, his body attached to the crag of a mountain. A heavy wind bends us back like a lever. We snap and crash onto the rocks. The man's body crumbles like dry mud. I spy a living man hiking up the hill, ask him to save me. My mother accuses me of trading danger for sex. She is naked and wrapped in saran wrap. I'm told that I will need to die by hanging. I stress about which pants to wear for the event. The exposure of my body, the twisting and turning of the rope. My mother hangs the windows with drapes. The room fills with smoke. When the house is demolished, I let others pick up the pieces. A man invites me to his private library. He shows me a white tome titled Here and Now. He explains the premise, a collection of logical fallacies I'm prohibited from reading. He says I owe him dinner for his brilliance. I follow his logic and pick up the check. I butter both sides of a roll, double up the body bag, think of all the hamsters who have died without reason. When autumn ends, I settle on winter's length. Nothing is slated to happen for years. Chairs for my hips, doors for my wrists. I walk through the house, dislodging. The village. A girl fixes peanut butter and jelly at a round oak table. A girl fixes meatloaf on white toast and butter and pepper. A girl fixes ham and Swiss on rye. A girl fixes turkey, lettuce, tomato, and mayo on whole wheat. A girl fixes roast beef on white. A girl fixes salami and cheese on potato bread. A girl fixes 2 eggs and American cheese on a Kaiser. Noun. I have all these text messages from my father of phrases he thinks are funny because they are 2 nouns acting as adjective noun, like store coffee. Store coffee is coffee that isn't brewed at home but at a store that you drink out of a cup with a lid, and the milk and sugar are provided by the store. Some people call this to-go coffee. He equates store coffee with loose coffee. I disagree and say that loose coffee is ground before it is brewed. Not at all store coffee. Loose coffee is coffee made at home. It is home coffee. He says quid, whatever. I say box tea in a box of individually wrapped tea bags. I say, I'm coming home to see you. He says, what time is your return train? I search for the phrase nouns that act as adjectives on the internet and hope for a grammarian term, something proper, but the internet only says that sometimes we use a noun to describe another noun, in which case the first noun acts as an adjective, like ticket office, racehorse, tennis ball. I don't always know what to make of a noun on noun, and sometimes just want a descriptive word to accompany the noun, like spotted egg or a hollowed horse, though I understand why some are wary of description, thinking that description is not knowing, not necessarily in any real sense of knowing the behind-the-scenes knowledge anyway. And now and again, when someone says it is what it is, I lose faith that people will ever say what they mean. He says, I want to be a better father, but I have no money. He says, don't tell your mother about the DUI, because of her nerves. He says, at least I never hit you. Sleep socks, boat shoes, chicken egg. Grammarians might call these compound nouns. The internet warns that a car accident is not an accident of the car. He says people will ask why Lauren didn't come to Uncle Ed's funeral. I say, tell them the truth, she's not doing well. I say, you two should finish the steps together. He says, we need to be on the same page, try this. She didn't come to the funeral because she is working. I say, but she doesn't have a job. He says, we have to return all our vehicles to the neutral zone by 5:30. He says, semper mihi hilai, which I translate as I am a species all to myself. But he says, no, semper mihi hilai means hot sausages are always mine. I say, that's a strange thing to say to your daughter. He says, coffee snack, dinner foil, water boots. The die has been cast. When I was 9, I said hi in the mirror and was embarrassed. I hadn't known there were so many of us. I had dental anger, a tame handshake, and scotch tape. I'd been a champion of self-rule and early warning signs, togetherness, shitting, and vanity, curfews to prevent the disquiet of Her Majesty's good subjects. When everyone left, I'd hang back to pet their soft sex, their wounded pink assholes. I'd rub their little ears. That guy at the train station talking about his jolly green giant. What did you say? He said, what would you say if I told you my jolly green giant? As if he hadn't told me, and I'm naturally mouthing words, naturally in costume under a car channeling. I'll get in any body of water in front of the whole world. My therapist calls me a cheater. You're a cheater, huh? The hairdresser takes my hair in her hands like it's a limp dick, asks how long since I washed it. My body's changing color like the ponies of Oz, and the line on the ground is a laser, is a crack, a scratch, a charcoal mass, is a ginger root, a green jaw, and nothing more. I'll get a coffee on a Friday morning. I'll drive to West Virginia with my mother. We'll listen to all 24 books of the Odyssey. In Pennsylvania, she'll tell me to do as Calypso does to Odysseus, keep a man in a cave, use medicinals. The title of this poem is the Virginia Statute of 1691, states that whosoever English or other white man or woman, bond or free, shall intermarry with a Negro, mulatto, or Indian man or woman, bond or free, he shall within 3 months be banished from this dominion forever. My mother says there's nothing wrong with marrying one, except it would be selfish to not think of the children. From an aerial view, the family unit is made up of individuals corresponding to their environment. In a car, I once told my mom that if I opened a motel, I would call it the Sunrise Motel. I must have been thinking about the Brook Motel on Sunrise Highway and how the Patel family who went to St. Joseph's Elementary School and lived in and owned the Brook Motel didn't call it the Patel Motel, which would have rhymed. I often drink too much wine on Thanksgiving and end up in arguments about race at the dinner table. My mother changes the subject by telling me that I should not be allowed to teach sex ed to my 9th grade students because I'm not a certified health teacher. My mother's a nurse, and before my 11th grade prom, while holding her hand to shield my eyes from a shower of aerosol hairspray, reminded me to keep my legs closed. In 2008, she gave me a navy blue floor-length robe for Christmas because a bathrobe is a respectable and practical garment to wear around the house after a shower, especially if you're a grown woman living with other adults. For my 37th birthday, she mailed me a card with a newspaper clipping about a woman who was caught with 37 cats in her Brooklyn apartment. The woman gave up the cats voluntarily and wasn't charged with any crime. My mother has since given me 3 blue robes. My favorite robe has a hood, is synthetic, and I like to smoke in it so much I'm surprised I haven't set myself on fire. I'm going to read an excerpt from a long poem in the back of the book titled I Try Out a Sentence to See Whether I Believe, and it has an epigraph from Jackie Wang. Where in this architecture of dust will you find the space to build a house that does not split? It's early in the year, early in the week, early in the day. A man clips his fingernails on the L train. I think about outrage at the public act of hygiene. I think I've done worse, done more damage than that with my thoughts. I begin at the graveyard where the sun is low in the sky. I put my things into the flatness where I can see them. Here we are, orange tractor, someone's digging up a grave. Like the word river spelled backwards, I fall into myself. My histories have me in fits. Another death by drowning dream, another death by asphyxiation dream, another death by public sex dream. I dream my parents at a gas station. I fail to leave before they see me. I am wearing a very wet bathing suit. Somehow it's clear to everyone that I've been having sex with lots of people. Young men with long eyelashes cross the street into the sun. I think we're not all in this together. Yesterday I was too stunned, too sad, too in a way feeling the sadness. Today I am too stunned, too sad, too in a way not feeling the sadness. I participate in the whitest lockdown of collective wonder. Seeing my fingers in the metal, I fear my fate is sealed. I'm all those assholes, having things I don't want to be told to not have. A thin rope in my back pocket, I am ready to strangle the truth out of anyone. I dream a large man trying to get to my pussy, my wonder and slight disgust at his ball sack. The theory that every person in one's dream is actually the dreamer. Sentimental men continue to scare me. I do not want to help them. However, I am a trooper for custom. When a man says, without prompting, just because I'm a guy doesn't mean I'm an idiot, I don't respond. Suddenly, I have systems. Erotic green scallops growing out of a tree trunk. I become horny when I enter a greenhouse. When I came upon marsh fern, I knew water was near, or that if water were not near, I need to worry. Sometimes earth is so obscured I forget her. My heart goes out to the New Year's sidewalk tree massacre. I try out a sentence to see whether I believe. I can't find my nature. I'm waking up to paternal etymologies. I'm solving problems on the ice. I want to eat the buttery carrots, the shag carpet, and the long road to the graveyard. There's some good on the individual level, but not enough courage. Dear courage, I'm crushed by fear of scarcity. I keep a to-do list on my phone. Go to the pine trees, find water, try harder. I spend $17 on 2 sweet potatoes, a dozen eggs, cremini mushrooms, and a can of beer. Some think me to be a heathen. I have no plan, but having nothing in the fridge feels wrong. I'm bored with my performances, the cat-dog argument, the superiority of the drugless body, the one-up, the who's your daddy, the tightrope. I have a poor memory. This alone tests belief. I read books and cannot retell or synthesize what I've read. Ideas I take in through the reading process might as well be dreams from my past lives. There is no such thing as not having a past, but I've lived a long time in this way. One could say that my father has lived ahistorically, did so when he protested the protesters of the Vietnam War, says, a bunch of spoiled rich kids, what did they know? I teach my students the letter A can be a prefix, and we look at the words atypical, atonal, asymptomatic. I have lived a long time unaware of my symptoms, like in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In the 80s, I attend St. Joseph's Elementary School. I am a terrible student. The adults are dismayed. I work hard to memorize the definitions of treaty, egalitarianism, and democracy. I did not get the D in D-Day, could not memorize the causes and effects of World War I, who signed the Treaty of Versailles, who was the Archduke Ferdinand, and what did he have for breakfast on the morning of his assassination. When I meet beautiful people with means, I think about meritocracy, citizenry, and survival of the fittest. I am attracted to monotony. I still cannot truly say whether knowing the thing that afflicts can lessen the hold of the affliction. I could be asking the wrong questions. At a young age, I learned to never ask anyone about his financial business. I took that off the table of casual conversation. The land grab continues. LA is burning, just like Octavia Butler said it would. Genocide in the Dakotas still. I finished Delaney's Dahlgren and experienced a listlessness. I have doubts that I will know how to transition back into a real world, a world in which excessive violence has not brought down capitalism, a world in which catastrophe has not granted me more sex. It doesn't matter that conspiracy is to breathe together, that insolence is to be brave, that darkness is to hold. We may be so satisfied we never want to change a thing. How is everyone? Oh, good. Okay, the last section I'm going to read from the book is titled, How Are Your Bowels? And there's a quote from C.A. Conrad. I mean, like an epigraph, not one that he put in. I took it. Cultivating interior life sounds nice. A rock needed to float out of my body. It seemed to know the way. The password is gravity. No need to whisper. Still good. As a child, I could not stand the anticipation of being found. I would jump out from hiding places during games of hide and seek. I'm here, I'd volunteer, and desperately untangle myself from the dresses in my mother's closet. My family did not discuss feelings, but my mother would often ask about my movements. How are your bowels, she'd say, in a tone of near accusation. On Valentine's Day in 1997, I purchased anal beads for my college boyfriend, Jay. He refused to participate, saying something along the lines of, I will not put those in my butt. I can't remember anything else from that night or the rest of that semester, actually. I'm still not sure what my condition is. To counter the onset of a sinking mood, I consider making a list of 10 things in which I have faith. I know for sure that pooping every day won't be on the list. Last month, I sent my mother an image of an I pooped today t-shirt. She texted back, gross. Then I texted her this tidbit since my condition is hereditary. In truly serious cases, constipation can be a symptom of an impacted bowel caused by a large, dry lump of feces that's stuck in your colon. In very rare cases, straining to push it out can kill you. One side effect of constipation is emotional stagnation, a tendency to produce incomplete ideas, sentences insufficient in their ability to create meaning. I write sentences while standing because I have sprayed dissolved magnesium all over my lower body. My sentences are often too heavy on the subject. The word sentence from the Latin infinitive sentire, to feel. How are you feeling? My thighs are burning. The fastest way to absorb magnesium into the body is through the skin if you can handle the sting and itch. Handling the sting and itch is crucial, especially if there is a chance that your large intestine has stopped absorbing nutrients. My partner calls from the bathroom to ask how to say, I am taking my second shit in Italian. Sto facendo caca per la seconda volta oggi. The position of sitting spread over a hole while it slides or is pushed out, the smell produced, the sound hitting the water, a blurred distinction between the act of shitting and an inexplicable shame. What began in the bowels soon spread until my skin itself electrified and unknowing, so frightening there were few ways back, one of them to disintegrate until skin lost its surface, or whatever skin relies on to know anything. Once, when I lay down loudly for too long, my therapist prescribed medication. She said I was leaky. I was leaking, but not through any orifice, just psychically. I was awash in slippery fluids, but my holes were paper dry. If depression is my slow landslide into darkness, lightness is my large intestine dutifully performing its undulation of peristalsis as a joyful muscular tunnel. I entered my freshman year of college as a biology major for no good reason, as they say. The classes were rigorous, but I was not in the habit of studying, so did not do well. I took a one-credit medical vocabulary course all about Latin and Greek etymology and switched swiftly to the classics department. The words and their origins beat the body and its systems. I have no memory of studying biology except that the small intestine has more beautiful name parts than the large intestine, jejunum and ileum versus rectum and colic flexure. The light from my large intestine is 1,000 years old. I have time. I eat a burrito at the parade grounds. I go to the dollar store, find a glass bowl with a lid for school lunches. I spend the month abstaining, abstain from alcohol in July, abstain from alcohol for most of July. I purchase a blue translucent plastic spray bottle from Duane Reade. I make this purchase with great hope and promise. I spray my thighs in dissolved magnesium. I infuse herbs and drink tea, tulsi and wood betony, yellow dock and fennel, burdock and prickly ash. I have time on my hands. I lose ground and wrestle. I mistake privilege for symptoms. I mistake the outside for the inside. I meditate on the relationship between constipation and a lover's fear of anal. If my large intestine has stopped absorbing nutrients due to a layer of shellac from years of not pooping, then who am I? I'm in the bathtub with my brother Brendan. Small brown turds begin to float to the surface of the water. Someone shrieks as if there are sharks emerging. In the 80s, my dad called me a commie pinko for putting ketchup on my scrambled eggs. The magnesium is still working, but there are still the magnesium is working, but there are still abstractions I cannot absorb into the skin. I blow dry the hair on my labia, then my armpits, then my bangs for 30 seconds apiece in that order until everything on my body is more or less dry. Okay, I'm going to end with two short pieces that are new that I haven't really read at a reading before, and I feel like I'm grateful for the Poetry Project for all of the times that, I don't know, I feel like I don't know how you guys feel, but like reading new stuff helps me figure it out. So what you need to know about this, because in the short amount of time, I won't read like the prose introduction, but I'll just let you know that my brother's father, my Uncle John, studied in Rome at seminary between the years of 1961 and 1965 during Vatican II. I had a dream that I found his desk in a basement that was filled with poems, and I was like, oh, Uncle John was a poet, like in my dream. And then a couple years later, I found hundreds of his letters written from Rome every Sunday to my grandmother. So all these airmail letters that I have, hundreds of them. The letters talk about his daily activities, but also questions about his faith and about, his insecurities about becoming a priest. After he was ordained, he got a job at a parish in Queens, met who became my Aunt Marion, left the church, married this other person, and then ended up getting divorced, and then died kind of alienated from all of his communities. And the only other thing to know is that during this time that I'm writing, in the past year and a half, my father's recovering from throat cancer. And that's it. Okay. And also, I'm making found poems out of the text in the letters, and then I'm writing my own stuff after that. October 6, 1961. Before the opening, waving frantically to all of you, the crowds on the dock, the laymen on the boat, salty as the devil, souvenirs of blood. I had fallen for her daughter, but of course, that's another story. First, I have to tell you about Gibraltar, honeycombed and bristling with guns. Your description of Gibraltar reminds me of Virgil. One of my first lessons about the Latin language was that the nouns are assigned a gender. Having only read English before then, I was suspicious of a grammatical gender system, that words assigned feminine were trapped onto the page and imbued with a code that would dictate my essential characteristics, pointing to what I could expect down the line. I thought if I could learn which words were a possible hex, my knowing them could upend becoming them. I began at the beginning of the Oxford Latin Dictionary, scanning for nouns assigned feminine that I intuited as threatening, such as abalienatio, a sale or a transfer of property, abdicatio, a voluntary renunciation, amantia, madness, words that might predict tragedy based on my identification as a female person. I think it was Virgil's description of Dido's suicide in the Aeneid that cemented my paranoia. Then, maddened by the fates, unhappy Dido calls out at last for death. It tires her to see the curve of heaven. I've never seen Gibraltar, but I did have a romance with an anarchist eco-sailor while they were ashore in Brooklyn. There's a part of me that wonders about your enthusiastic confession to your devoutly Catholic mother of crushing on a woman en route to a Roman seminary where you would marry the church and forgo other types of romance. I'm suspect of your performance and aware that I've internalized many ways of othering those who don't fit into my groomed understandings of masculinity. I just can't imagine the 1950s Catholic community of Bay Ridge inviting you to live according to your desires. Or maybe it's my own doubt that I could have a desire that isn't about absence. As Lara Mimosa Monti's essays, it was sequential until it wasn't and open to what is adjacent. Monti's it seems to be the nowhere we carry throbbing, which is what I mean about the unfolding of the understanding of desire, the prism of tether, its spinning tread. And then this is the last one. October 16th, 1961, installment number 2 of The Traveler. His title. Gape, private altar. Chief virtue of American at Rome, humility. Phase, teeming empire. Again, plain factual. Miles of dark, damp feeling piles. My father has started taking oxycodone 30 or so minutes before dinner so that he's able to eat. I asked him, is oxy as good as vodka? He says, nothing is as good as vodka. In the early 2000s, I listened to a health show on KPFA called The Gary Knowles Show. I've pulled out his book of natural cures and opened to the page on cancer, but haven't been able to read it yet. It just sits open on the kitchen table. My dad would scoff at Gary Null, call him a communist for sure, but would also get a kick out of his name, Null, nada, niente. During your seminary retreat on October 10th, 1961, you wrote about an expectation for a type of sobriety, despite the beer and wine lunches in Rome. We both know that the allure of alcohol runs in the family, my dad would say at Gallup's, and at times it does interfere with my own spiritual acuity. I'm thinking about its relationship to belief in these days. There's something about alcohol's offer of dissolution that swells me with Neptunian neither-norness, and blurs my capacity for knowing myself. As I near a sense of interference, I static towards softness and blue the edges with spirit. Spending time with your brother is like bouncing between monster and a familiar store clerk. Once in a while, father. But mostly, what's the language that came up in analysis? The dead animus, the father who can't become. During the early days in the hospital, he wasn't coherent. I wrote the word pneumonia on a piece of green construction paper so that when he'd ask while he was there, we could point to the paper like I do when I'm teaching a child to read. Once out of the hospital, he told me that during the ins and outs of consciousness, he believed that I and all the hospital staff were part of a far-right Christian conspiracy to disappear him into the bowels of the hospital. He believed my mother was the only one, pretending to go along with the nurses, but was on his side. He'd wink at her while complying to the nurses' requests. Turn on your left side, right wrist, please. Time to clean your mouth out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much, Morgan. Thank you, Teline, for this beautiful intro. I also want to thank the staff working tonight, Heather, Kay, as well as our techs, Noah and Gary. And thank you all for coming. Please come back to the Poetry Project.